Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, it's time for a big picture update where we stand in the Bitcoin cycle. We're going to have a look at the German government selling, the Mt Gox overhang, the FTX payout, as well as the backgrounds macro with what's happening in terms of liquidity and inflation rates. And then we're going to have a look at Ethereum, Solana, some meme coins, and some of the best altcoins, I think, as we gear up for the next stage of this cycle. So these are the projections that I drew on with our cycle brackets, with the halvings marked here as well. And what we were looking at when Bitcoin was sub 20,000 and I put these on was a bit of a grind higher, a push higher before the halving, a retrace after the halving, and then we resume higher again. So roughly we just had something that would be, in the vicinity of 25-30%. It would last a few months. And although we pushed a lot higher and made new all-time highs pre-halving for the first time in Bitcoin's history, now that we've had this correction and cool off that we've been looking for, it's been between 25 and 30% and lasted a few months. So the market has had a chance to cool off. We'll zoom in, have a look at some shorter time frames, but certainly everything's still aligning for that push higher to $1,000 as $100,000 as our first real big blow off for this cycle. But let's have a look at what's been happening, because the German government had 50,000 Bitcoins worth around $3.5 billion that they've basically finished selling now. So this overhang's all but been exhausted. This might be one of the reasons why we have had this sell-off more recently, but now people are looking forward to the next thing that might cause price disturbance, and that's Mt Gox with their 150,000 Bitcoin overhang. So this is triple the amount, about $10 billion. But I want to talk about this for a little bit. So I don't necessarily think that it's all going to be dumped like when the government sells all their Bitcoin that they've acquired to just get rid of it, okay? So we've seen a few on-chain movements from Mt. Gox recently. Whether or not that's an OTC or doesn't really matter. But the fact is that I don't think all this Bitcoin is going to be sold. So I think the price was around 600 when Mt. Gox went down. So you're looking at roughly 100x. So yeah, some people are in massive profits and they're about to get this payout. Sure, some people are going to sell. But others are still diehard believers, and this is going to tie into when we get into the Bitcoin DeFi and the fact that you can borrow now against your Bitcoin. You don't have to sell if you want to take out a chunk of money. As well as some percentage of people that were all Bitcoin here are going to want to put some into alts, I think, particularly with alts really bleeding out this cycle, and it's only really been meme coins and really good quality projects that have pumped hard. A lot of people are saying, well, where's the best risk to reward? Sure, I'm still going to keep the majority in Bitcoin because I believe Bitcoin's going to grow this cycle, but why not throw a bit of that money at some of these other alts or projects I like that have really been bleeding out of late? So I think that's something else just to be mindful of. In terms of the ETFs, we have seen a bit more interest come back after it was pretty quiet for a few weeks here. And hundreds of millions daily, again, buying with some interest from the Bitcoin ETF at these levels. But again, if you know that there's an overhang coming, there's no reason necessarily to be too aggressive. We know that the market might go a little bit lower if these Mt. Gox people are going to sell a little bit. So a lot of people are sort of sitting on the sidelines. It's a bit of a choppy area at the moment. But forward looking, again, big picture, still super bullish on everything crypto. But FTX have got their payout $16 billion, which is drawing near. So this is far bigger than the government selling, even combined with Mt. Gox if everyone was to sell. So overall, this is a huge net positive that the markets are going to start looking, I think, towards at some stage in the next few weeks or months. With a lot of people that were on the sidelines and wiped out when FTX blew up are going to look to push majority of that money back into, again, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, their favorite alts, memes, whatever it is. So this is a massive, massive push for that next stage of the cycle that might be that catalyst. In terms of what's happening in the macro space, so global liquidity, how much money is in the banking system, the stock market, sloshing around between investors. So we know that Bitcoin, for the majority of its life cycle, had pretty easy monetary policy as a tailwind. Money printing, low, near zero, even negative interest rates in some countries. But that tightened a little bit in recent years throughout COVID. So governments looking to or central banks more so, looking to unwind their balance sheet and sell back into the market, raise interest rate, tighten conditions a little bit after all the money they printed and gave out during COVID. So that might be starting to turn. If we zoom in here, Chris Tepper from Ainsley Wealth here in Australia with this good chart just showing that global liquidity might be starting to turn up and ease again. Now, we know that the global financial system is completely out of control. I think the US is adding $1 trillion of debt, something like every 90 days. And within a year or two, that's going to be up to every 30 days, another $1 trillion in debt. So this is completely unsustainable, and it's a lot harder for them to pay down this debt with interest rates high. So Trueflation, you guys know that I really like this website. They go out and get a lot of data points, and they tend to be more accurate and finger on the pulse than government CPI prints. This tends to lead by a few months, and they've got it now down at 1.8% and tipping under that 2% mark that we haven't had for a long time in that government band that they're now looking for. So less than 2% means they've got to start to cut interest rates. They typically like to have inflation between 2 and 3%. That's their target band. So we've already seen some countries around the world start to cut interest rates. In Australia, we didn't go as high as others, which Martin and I talk about in our monthly macro videos, but looks like inflation is finally starting to come under control. So again, easy money conditions, doesn't have to be as easy as 0% or whatever, but as long as things are getting easier than they currently are, that's what investors look for. Well, what's next? Now, we've certainly seen that in terms of the stock market. It's had a big run lately. US government bonds looks like they might be rolling over after peaking at near 5%. So people are starting to position themselves for the next chapter and as those global conditions change. So let's just zoom in, have a look at Bitcoin on the daily time frame. So the thing that I do like here is that anytime you get below the Bollinger Bands on a weekly, in a bull market, it tends to be an amazing buying opportunity. And we've finally had that long, deep correction. We're below those Bollinger Bands. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have one more dip lower, but we have put in some bullish divergence, which is really good to see. So anytime, price is dropping and our momentum and strength indicators are actually turning up, that tends to be a positive, okay? So it doesn't mean we can't have one more dip or retest. A lot of people eyeing off that $52,000 level. So anywhere from 53 to 50, there's the next level or area of support short term. But I want to talk about why this might not matter too much and paint this picture of what's happening. So if people are worried about the overhang from Mt Gox in the short term, maybe this is where things can start to turn positive for alts. So this Bitcoin dominance that we look at, it looks like it's approached this key level of resistance and might be wanting to roll over. And we've got these tailwinds like the Ethereum ETF that can be the catalyst for people going, you know what, if Bitcoin's going to chop around for a while more, this is the stage set for altcoins to finally have their time in the sun. And I do think the Ethereum ETF is going to see big inflows. It's funny how these fundamental catalysts often align with the technical. So Ethereum on the weekly, it's kissed that oversold on the Bollinger Bands there. But it's this ETH Bitcoin chart that I think is more interesting. We've been in this downtrend. Looks like it's had that failed breakout, and now we've had that breakout and coming back to retest a couple of times. So if this can hold and Bitcoin can just chop around, this can really be the cause where traders jump on board too and start to push things. And the Ethereum ETF gets big inflows. That might be what we need. We've also got Van Eck and others pushing for a Solana ETF. This layer one blockchain, whether you love it or hate it, has positioned itself to be almost one of the big three that people are saying, you know what, I want exposure to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana this cycle. So again, that's a really big positive. And yeah, I do think that other coins are going to get their ETFs, whether it's the basket of the top 10, people saying XRP's next. I'm not too sure, but it doesn't really matter. All of these big projects are going to have an on-ramp for money to get in from Wall Street. In terms of Solana, I do want to give a big shout out to Jason, who's one of our research team contributors, and he's been super bullish on Solana and pumping out heaps of updates. But this was the update he gave. I think he bought a big chunk when it was $9, and shared this with our community when Solana was still in the teens. So well done to those that have been right across the Solana ecosystem. It's positioned itself as the place to launch a lot of meme coins as well for cheap transactions. So this has done a huge return, 1,000%, and held up pretty well. So again, it's in an interesting area where there looks to be a bit of support, a bit of buying coming in, talk of the Solana ETF. Solana Bitcoin chart looks like maybe it's just getting ready for the next leg higher after chopping around in a bit of a range for a while. So they're the things you want to be looking at. Now, in terms of meme coins, and again, Solana has done a lot to almost make meme coins the altcoins of 2017. I've talked about this in other videos, the low cost of memes and why people want to have a punt on those. But this is really the only sector that's got people really excited, and it's pretty big these days. Total market cap 42 billion. So, we're not mucking around, and people are loving their meme coins, particularly, political trends. The other day there was talk of maybe, Michelle Obama running, and all these meme coins about her pop up and have really pumped. So all those kind of political narratives or world news, anything like that, people are seeing that as an opportunity to launch and jump on a meme coin. Now, Vitalik's done pieces on why that might be good or bad, and hopefully actually attaching some utility rather than just being a plain meme coin in future. But love it or hate it, this has been the space where a lot of punters and traders have been playing this cycle. So in terms of the fundamentals, I think real world assets are another class that are going to get their own ETFs, and a lot of the BlackRocks and Vanguards and whatever are going to look to put more real world assets on chain. So watch that space, but it's this Bitcoin DeFi space that I think is going to be the number one performer. So the sheer fact that you can borrow against your Bitcoin, the layer 2s that are coming, all that excitement is going to be one less reason to sell your Bitcoin if you can borrow stables against it. We've done so many videos about this. But just a reason why Bitcoin doesn't necessarily have to have those huge sell-offs when whales are in huge amounts of profit. They can just borrow against their Bitcoin now. So in terms of the DeFi space, this is one project that we jumped on. We did a lot of research on this, I think at 20 or 30 cents. That's pumped 1,000%, and a lot of people had FOMO, but now it's had a pretty big, decent pullback. So this is where if you missed out on a lot of these good projects in the Stacks ecosystem, go and have a look. We've done so many videos and interviews on these. Stacking DAO the other day is a great place to get exposure to your staked stacks and then put them into these other great protocols. Something like Vela's had a massive pullback now, back 90%. So this is where I think a lot of interest and a lot of money is going to flow once other people realize that Bitcoin DeFi is going to be absolutely huge. So that's pretty much it from me for today, guys. If you want all our latest research, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au where you can check out all our model portfolios with the best projects. We're pumping out that daily alpha. Otherwise, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.